A six-story building collapsed early on Friday in the Egyptian capital of Cairo, killing 6 people. The city's deputy governor said a family of 6 was inside when the incident occurred, but couldn't yet explain why it had happened. Rescuers were still searching through the rubble on Friday afternoon, and people were asked to leave the area because of structural concerns. Illegal construction is common in the North African country, and the government has tried to crack down the practice with law enforcement. According to the Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, building collapses across Egypt killed 500 people in the past 7 years. Over 6,500 tons of food arrived in Burkina Faso on Friday. The supplies were sent by the ECOWAS and are intended for the internally displaced fleeing the jihadist violence in the country. The president of the Regional Communities Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibrou, handed over the bags to the country's agriculture minister in Ouagadougou. We asked for 10,000 tons, and the ECOWAS granted a loan of 6,579.5 tons of food. It should be noted that this loan will be entirely repaid, while also seeking solutions to issues related to the replenishment of our stocks at the national level, and also, of course, working to implement means of resilience to be able to succeed in the upcoming campaigns and move towards food sovereignty. Described as a solidarity mechanism by the ECOWAS, it is done through the organization's Regional Food Security Reserve and with the support of the European Union. It could help around 130,000 people. Kinshasa is hosting the 7th edition of the Night of the African Football. The annual event rewards players, coaches and managers who have distinguished themselves in their respective fields on the continent. It is also an occasion to bring together different generations of football lovers. This year's theme is Sports, Peace and Development. A conference held by Congolese Minister of Sports Serge Condé, surrounded by sports journalists, former football players such as Jimmy Adviko Boko and Anthony Bafo, as well as a former coach and an expert from the International Football Federation, took place in the morning. The event is taking place as the DRC is facing a difficult security situation, particularly in the eastern part, which is plagued by violence. The Central African country has won the African Cup of Nations twice in 1968 and 1974, year in which its leopards entered the World Cup. Several people from the Maasai community in Kenya demonstrated in Nairobi on Friday. They're accusing neighbouring Tanzania of using violence against their people, trying to evict them from their land for tourism purposes. Maasais in Tanzania have spotted officials marking off land, reportedly for a game reserve.
The rights of the indigenous community living in Tanzania, especially the Maa community, and we are not going to move an inch from our cradle land in Loliondo, in Simanjiro, in Kiteto, in Kilimanjaro. We are going to stay put.
The confrontation started in Tanzania, but many fled to Kenya to avoid repercussions.
We are saying no! No to violations of human rights! People in Tanzania are dying! Women are being raped! Children are getting lost! And you arrest us! Why? We are the Maasai! We will not agree.
UN expert says up to 70,000 Maasai could be displaced by the planned game reserve.
We want the authorities in Tanzania to halt the ongoing demarcation process and the security operation in Loliondo. And we want the government to begin genuine consultation with the Maasai community.
The East African Court of Justice is meant to rule on the merits of a case filed by supporters of the Maasais against the Tanzanian government next Wednesday. Zimbabwean nurses plan to go on strike on Monday to denounce their poor wages and working conditions. The announcement was made through a letter addressed by several unions to the biggest hospital in the country. This is their second strike since the COVID-19 pandemic began. The previous movement in 2020 forced hospitals to turn away patients during the health crisis. Nurses in Zimbabwe are paid about $80 per month, according to the unions, and are struggling to cope with the crippling inflation.